England and Australia this weekend from Twickenham, folks. There's going to be a lot of rugby fans in different parts of London this weekend with the Box taking on Japan. I think you had an overlapping time for this game at Wembley, but at Twickenham it is England hosting Australia. Should be a very tasty one, especially given how last year's game was an absolute cracker. If this one is even half of that game, which was 42-37 to the Wallabies, we should be in for a bit of a treat. The squads have been named. We'll go through them, some of the predictions, recent history, and stats. You guys can let us know your thoughts. Steve Borthwick is a bit of a renegade, isn't he? Like, he's talking about, Ben Earl could end up in the centres, which they've done before, towards the end of games. Henry Pollock could end up on the wing. Guy Pepper could end up in the back line. He's picked a 6-2 split. And it would not surprise me at all to see some of these forwards in the back line towards the end of this game. I don't know what it is about him, the fact that he's a bit of a dull speaker, that maybe he doesn't get as much credit, like his press conferences aren't full of sound bites, which like maybe Eddie Jones or Russie Erasmus or somebody else gets, but he's saying some pretty out there stuff. He's not going to get credit for that, I suppose. People are still going to give him stick for being a bit boring. And to be fair, his team does kick a lot, which plays into that stereotype. But yeah, I would love to see Henry Pollock out in the wing towards the end of the game. Let's see how things go. Finn Baxter, Jamie George, and Joe Hayes. That is the front row. Finn Baxter has been a bit of a tackling machine this season in the Premiership, so you always love to see that kind of work rate from one of the boys in the low numbers. You'd be very happy with your lock-in duo of Itoje and Chisholm. Both those guys went on the Lions tour. I feel like they're a good locking duo and that they complement each other pretty well. Itoje is full of line-out wins and dominant tackles, and he's the captain, and then Chisholm, really physical around the park. I think they're a perfect duo. And in the back row, you guys are stacked. Guy Pepper, as I said, he gets another crack in England colours. He went on that tour to Argentina. Bit of a turnover merchant as well. He played 7, I think, the last game for England, but he's to 6 for this game. Sam Underhill, speaking of dominant tackles, is there at 7. And then Ben Earl, I know a lot of people would rather see him on the flank than at number 8, but he is at number 8 for this one. There's no Tom Willis, who I've had a look at his numbers as well, and they're very, very nice, but I know he's off leaving Premiership rugby at the end of the season, so I guess that's why he's not considered, but boy, you'd have been tempted to pick him. But Ben Earl, really good player, so he's at number 8 and could potentially end up in the midfield later. Mitchell and Ford is your 9-10 combo. Remember, Ford was the guy pulling the strings for England on that Argentina tour. He's getting a bit of stick for his selection at 10, but I don't know. George Ford's a good player, and Alex Mitchell's a good player. Has a pretty good 9-10 combo. It's better than a lot of the 9-10 combos in the world. I mean, Australia are down to like their 4th choice 10. So if you offered them George Ford, I reckon they'd probably take him. They've also got Finn Smith on the bench, and there's no spot for Marcus in this team. But Mitchell and Ford means there will be more of Borthwick's kicking game, which we've seen in evidence. We'll get to the stats shortly. Dingwall and Freeman is maybe another bit of a left field call, because Freeman comes into the midfield. Borthwick's been saying he's not a winger who can play midfield. He's not a midfielder. He's both equally. And he also did mention the fact that they've got a lot of good wingers in English rugby. So the fact that they play Freeman in the midfield gives a chance for other guys to get a crack on the wing. So yeah, you guys who watch more Premiership then will have to let me know if you think that's a good move. But Freeman's a hell of a player. So is his best position in the midfield, or would you prefer to see him out on the wing? I mean, there's no Ollie Lawrence as well. If I'm picking it as a guy who's not watched a heck of a lot of Premiership this season, I'm probably putting Freeman on the wing and Lawrence in the midfield. But hey, you guys will have to educate me. Faye Boso's in there on the left wing. Cracking season so far in the Premiership. He's been cracking through the run meters. I think he's had like 7 tries. Dude is a machine. And then Roebuck's on the other wing with high ball specialist Freddie Stewart there at 15. So he's gone for a more specialist fullback for this one rather than the kind of dual playmakers thing. Has Borthwick, Cowan-Dickie, Genge and Stewart. That's a very veteran-looking, Lions-looking bench to bring off in terms of the front rowers. Coles is there. Tom Curry, who I don't think's had a lot of rugby. He's there alongside Pollock, so the extra forward with just the 2 backs in Spencer and Finn Smith on the bench. As I mentioned, Borthwick talked up the fact that a lot of the forwards can play in the backs, and then Finn Smith can cover multiple positions as well. I guess you got a guy like Freeman as well who can cover various positions if needs be. So that is Steve Borthwick's England side. For the Aussies, they're obviously without a few of the guys who are limited by club commitments, the likes of Lenny Kitau, Will Skelton, and James O'Connor and whatnot, but it's a much stronger team than what's looking like the one that played over in Japan a week ago. Fingers crossed they travelled early, so they've acclimatized after leaving Japan. But yeah, a fair few changes. Gus Bell, Billy Pollard, and Taniela Tupou. That is one of the more, I feel like, selected Wallabies front rows thus far. Tupou will be looking to turn the screws at scrum time. Bell is the guy to watch around the park in terms of front rowers who can get run meters and bust tackles and score tries and whatnot. And then Billy Pollard is partial to a wee maul try himself. Williams and Frost are your locks, so it's looking a little bit less heavy duty in the locks. They don't have that big traditional lump of a second rower in terms of a Skelton or a Salakaia-Loto, but Salakaia-Loto is there on the bench. Remember, he got injured in the Japan game a week ago, so I imagine that is why he's not thrust into another starting role. But Nick Frost is certainly the line-out guy to watch. If they can shut him down, England, then they'll be disrupting a lot of what the line-out plays the Wallabies set up get started by. Valetini shifts to number 6 after playing 8 last week. Fraser McRae, tackle machine, is back at number 8. And then Harry Wilson's up from the bench. He came off the bench pretty early last week against Japan, but yeah, he would have liked maybe a bit more of a rest, but not to be. But he is back starting, and he's captain. There's no temptation to change the 9-10 combo of Gordon and Edmed. Remember, they're without Lino, who didn't travel. They are without James O'Connor, who's got club commitments. They're without Lolosio, who has been injured for quite a long time. They have brought back Carter Gordon from Rugby League, but not tempted to thrust him in just yet. So it's Edmed, who, as I said, is not the first choice, second choice, or third choice 10 for Joe, but he did pull the strings against Japan last week and managed to steer them to a win. Paisami and Suali'i is the midfield. You feel like it would have been Ikitau if available, but Paisami, still a pretty good player. You feel like the English fans should probably remember Suali'i from when he played against England this time last year. He's gotten better since then too. He's had 4 tries in the Rugby Championship and is still a big threat. Harry Potter is there on the left wing, so there's no Peach for this one. Jorgensen's there on the right. He's been fantastic all Rugby Championship. One of the top guys for defenders, betting and clean breaks. And again, from last year's game, England fans will remember him. And then Callaway is there at fullback because Tom Wright is unfortunately out for the season injured. Bench-wise, it's Nasser, Robertson, and Ala Alatoa. So your tight head stocks are looking a bit better. Australia, remember, there's no James Slipper because he's retired. Champion de Krebney drops to the bench. Ryan Lonergan, Hamish Stewart, and Dalguna are the 3 back replacements. So I guess Stewart's covering 10. He's played a bit of 10 before, but you would say it's not really the kind of thing you would want to chuck him in the deep end against England. But yeah, those are your Aussie players for this match. Some stats. I mentioned England kicked the leather off the ball, like averaging close to 40 kicks a game. Most teams are in the mid to high 20s. A few teams get to the 30s, so England's close to 40 is a fair bit more than most of the other tier 1 sides that we watch. That being said, that doesn't mean they can't or won't attack with ball in hand. They still score a fair few tries. I feel like those numbers have been getting better. And they break a heap of tackles, except against Scotland for some reason. And the penalty count is generally less than 10 conceded per game, which is that marker of what you'd like to keep it under. So England, despite the fact that they got a reputation for kicking the ball a lot, they still have plenty of pleasing numbers. For the Aussies, the lineout has been a little bit shaky in the last 2 games, but as I mentioned, they had locking crisis in that Japan game. But we have seen what their attack can do when it clicks, like against South Africa. They had 10 line breaks at Ellis Park. Against the British and Irish Lions, one of the games they had like 9 line breaks. Against the Pumas in one of the games, they had 10 line breaks, which is a lot. So they can cut teams to bits, but they were kept a little bit quiet against like the All Blacks at Eden Park. Against Japan, their attack was looking a bit blunt and a much changed Wallabies side. So will they fire at Twickenham? I hope so, because last time they fired and they scored a whole bunch of points. The recent history is 3-2 in favour of England. There's wins for England over in Australia back in 2022, but the Aussies got 1 win on that tour as well. And then the most recent one is that Twickenham game last year where the Aussies won it at the death. The average being 29-24 to England over the Aussies. So, you know, these teams tend to play out pretty interesting games. England are the favourites by 8 points according to the bookies and 12 points according to the Rugby Forecast algorithm. So, yeah, they are predicted to win this one by more than a try. I hope it's closer than that, personally. If you want any England gear or Wallabies gear, this channel is an affiliate of both of the official stores. So check both the links below if you want to get yourself some rugby gear. Christmas is coming, so who knows? Maybe grab a loved one or yourself a wee bit of rugby merchandise. I am partial to it myself. But yes, you guys let us know your thoughts on the game. James Dolman is the ref. He's a Kiwi, so maybe that's a little bit of an interpretation advantage to the Wallabies guys who'll be more familiar with him. But it is at Twickenham. Tough place to go. You guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.